Hyperbait has been the dominant deck in Clash Royale recently, and every game is starting to look the same. Goblin and skeleton barrels, hero goblins, wall breakers, dart goblins, and way too many cheap spam cards that just overwhelm you in seconds. And most of the time, there's nothing you can really do about it. There's only so much logs and arrows you can have in your deck to deal with all the small troops. Hyperbait grew out of classic logbait, a deck that's been in the game since 2017, but where classic logbait had a mini tank, a defensive building, and a rocket for backup, Hyperbait stripped all of that out and replaced them with Evo Barrel, wall breakers, hero goblins, and skeleton king. All small troops and all cycling at a speed that most decks simply cannot match. Logbait used to be somewhat respected as a deck, as it was strong enough to be competitive in high ranks, but still balanced where you can manage to win through skill even if you're running a beatdown deck. But as Supercell adds more broken Evos and heroes, cards like Evo Skeleton Barrel, Evo Wall Breakers, Evo Goblin Barrel, and Hero Goblins make this deck so much harder to defend against. Unlike heavy beatdown decks that might never touch the tower if completely stopped, Hyperbait virtually guarantees chip damage over the course of a match. Your goblins might get a couple of stabs every now and then. Your skeleton barrel, even if completely stopped, will still get damage through their explosion effect. And one mistimed placement will respawn the hero goblins on your tower and you'll eat 1000 damage. But what exactly makes this deck type so overpowered? Is it the cheap cards? Is it the broken evos and heroes? Or is it something that is present in the core Clash Royale game mechanic that just makes this deck dominate all over others? Well, today we'll be discussing exactly that. It's actually 4 core things that make the Hyperbait overpowered as a deck, even if your troops are underleveled. The first crucial one is no wrong moves. This mechanic makes this deck be labeled as a low skill, because there is effectively no wrong plays you can make. There's no wrong way to push in order to take the tower, or a specific style you need to play in. You just spam cards and chip away at the tower, all while defending 15 elixir pushes with a dart goblin and 1 elixir skeletons. Here's something most people never think about when they're playing Clash Royale. Every deck in this game has a worse play. A moment where you misread the situation, commit too early, place the wrong card, and instantly get punished. Either your push gets defended cheaply, your opponent counter pushes the other lane and 3 crowns you, or your 15 elixir push deals 100 damage. That's how the game is supposed to work. Smart decisions get rewarded, and bad decisions get punished. But Hyperbait just doesn't follow the same rules. It doesn't have a worse play or a wrong move. Every card in that deck costs between 1 and 3 elixir, so when a Hyperbait player throws a Goblin Barrel and you log it perfectly, they just spend 3 elixir and you spend 2. But now, they learn that you have a log and it's out of cycle. They didn't lose anything meaningful, they just bought information for 1 elixir. And then, they can cycle 4 cheap cards in the back and throw another barrel and your log is nowhere to be found. This essentially means that anything a Hyperbaiter does cannot get punished. If they somehow forgot you have Zap in cycle and they send a skeleton barrel that gets easily countered, they can simply fast cycle to another one and now you don't have anything to defend it with. It's a constant game of pushing small troops over and over again that might get countered 90% of the time, but that 10% deals most of the damage that leads to a tower down. Now if you compare that to any other deck in the game, a golem player who misreads the situation and drops their 8 elixir tank at the wrong time doesn't just waste elixir, they hand the opponent a free counter push window that could cost them a tower. A hawk player that throws their win condition into a building they didn't see coming loses tempo that takes multiple cycles to recover. Even other decks have moments where the wrong play at the wrong time shifts the entire momentum of the match. If you place your Expo down at the wrong time in an Expo cycle deck, you'll get heavily punished. Hyperbait players, however, don't have those moments. The cost of every individual decision is so low that no single mistake can swing the game against them. They can misread you 5 times in a row and it changes nothing, because the 6th time, the one where they finally catch you 1 elixir short or 1 spell deep in cycle, is the one that takes the tower. So defeating a Hyperbaiter is more about being more skilled and smart with your playstyle rather than them making a mistake that cost them the game. This mechanic ties directly to the next one. Constant pressure. There's a rhythm to Clash Royale that every player learns, usually without realizing it. Your opponent pushes, you defend, and you take a couple of seconds to look at your hand, count your elixir, and decide what to do next. This gap, this 2 or 3 second window between a push ending and another one being built, is where the entire game lives. This is when you strategize your next move, whether to start building your own push, wait for theirs and work on defending, or baiting out any of their cards for your next push. But in Hyperbait games, this window is completely gone. There's no couple of seconds to strategize or think. When playing a Hyperbaiter, you're in a constant state of defense and counter pushing, and that's their entire strategy. The Hyperbait deck is built to be played fast, with no breathing room, constant non-stop pressure, so that the enemy can't possibly build a push because they don't have enough elixir. The idea is if they are constantly spending elixir to defend cheap cards, then they won't have enough to build a proper push. Because you can't drop a 6 elixir royal giant if you're constantly dropping 1, 2, even 3 elixir cards left and right to defend. Now the moment you finish defending one wave, there's already something else at the bridge, and now you have to defend again. Nothing about this is random. It's a system designed to keep you permanently one step behind, and you need to make a decision. Either ignore a lane and eat the damage in order to build a massive push, or keep defending until something happens. But if you reach double elixir, it's practically over for you. This is why players constantly describe facing Hyperbait as exhausting rather than just frustrating. It's also one of the reasons it's labeled as a no skill, because there is no skill in constantly placing tower threatening troops that cost 2 and 3 elixir one after the other and forcing your opponent to defend, not allowing them to build a push. It's not something smart or unique that the Hyperbaiter is doing, it's just how the deck is built. Now this is all due to the third mechanic that makes this deck overpowered, and it's the most obvious one, cycle speed. At usually less than 2.9 average elixir, Hyperbait's cheapest 4-card cycle costs roughly 6 elixir, which generates in about 6 seconds at single elixir rate. This means the time it takes a Hyperbait player to cycle through 4 cards and get back to their Goblin Barrow, for example, approximately 6 seconds have passed. A Golem Beatdown deck runs at roughly 4.3 average elixir. A full 4-card cycle costs somewhere between 14 and 17 elixir, depending on the hand. This is nearly 3 times longer to get back to anything meaningful, and the Golem itself, the card that everything else is built around, costs 8 elixir. Now this cycle speed means something very crucial, because it's not just you cycle faster than your opponent. Your speed means that you can always get a few hits on the tower even when you're defending. It is constant chip damage, and this is the fourth mechanic that makes this the most OP ever. Chip damage always connects. Every aggressive deck in Clash Royale has an off switch or a defense sequence that guarantees perfect defense and 0 damage. If you stop a Hog Rider with a building, you take 0 damage. If you defend a Golem push perfectly, 0 damage. Beatdown decks operate on an all or nothing principle. Either they break through with a massive push and take the whole tower, or they don't. Even a lot of cycle decks rely on chip damage over time, like the Hawk 2.6, but they still have a way to be perfectly defended every time. So a perfect defense with a heavy deck means exactly that, perfect. But the problem is, there is no perfect defense against Hyperbait. Every single card in a Hyperbait deck is designed to extract at least some value even in the worst case scenario. Even if you zap, arrows, or log, which perfectly counter Skeleton Barrel, the explosion it produces means your tower will always take damage. The Dark Goblin's fast attack speed means it can always at least land one hit before you even counter it. Every card is built to deal some sort of damage even at the worst moments, and this damage compounds over the course of the match. Because Hyperbait cycles through its entire deck 4, 5, even 6 times a match, every one of those cycles, some version of unavoidable chip damage lands on your tower. So that's 3 minutes of guaranteed chip damage from a deck that never stops cycling, which adds up to something that looks, by the end of the game, like you got completely outplayed, even though you defended everything correctly every single time. This is the cruelest part of playing against a Hyperbaiter. You can log every Goblin Barrel, you can arrow Skeleton Barrels, and you can cannon every Wall Breaker Rush. And at the end of the match, your tower is still sitting at 40% health, and you genuinely have no idea how it happened. Because it didn't happen in one moment or one push, it happened in 30 small moments spread across the 3 minutes. Now these 4 mechanics create a deck so OP, it dominates almost every single matchup. But the main question remains, is it no skill spam or is it smart play? The people who hate it will tell you it's the most baneless deck in the game, that there is no strategy involved, and that you're just throwing cards at the bridge and hoping something sticks. However, the people who play it will tell you the opposite, that it requires deep matchup knowledge, that bad Hyperbait players are easy to beat once you understand the patterns, and that the deck has real exploitable weaknesses that skilled opponents punish consistently. And here's the thing, that second group isn't entirely wrong. Hyperbait does have weaknesses. Air-heavy decks like Lavalone are a nightmare matchup because the deck runs almost no reliable anti-air or buildings. Decks carrying 3 small spells break the pressure system entirely because you will have enough answers for every threat. And Hyperbait has 0 spell cycling capability, no rocket and no fireball, meaning in overtime, when towers are full, the deck has no backup plan. These are real weaknesses, and a skilled player who understands the matchup can exploit all of them. The right question isn't, does this deck require skill to play? The right question is, does a mediocre player using this deck stress a great player using a different deck? And the answer is yes, always yes, which makes this deck overpowered. Because everything we talked about in this video, the no wrong move, the constant pressure, the cycle speed, and the guaranteed chip, none of that requires skill to activate. Those advantages exist the moment you pick up the deck. A brand new Hyperbait player will still cycle faster than a beatdown deck, and they still generate more threats than the opponent has spells, and they will still deal chip damage on every single exchange. And that is just how the deck is, and it's overpowered. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.